Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno episode 270, and this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between, so let's get started. This is kind of a lighter week for me. I got about 16 books, so number 16 for me this week was Nightwing issue 55, which I think I'm going to drop for the time being. I just don't really see the direction of where this is going. I actually did like the concept of Rick Grayson. I think they had a solid story in the first 2 issues or so, but really has not found a direction for the book. I feel like every issue is the exact same story. The cops are doing something that are Nightwing-esque, and then Nightwing's, Rick Grayson says, I don't want to be Nightwing, and I just like the life I have now, and that is pretty much the story progression. It's just not really moving for me, and also the artwork is really weak and messy for me, so giving that 2 stars, and like I said, I'm going to drop this one until I see some story progression, or hear about some story progression. Number 15 is the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers issue 34. I do see that this was in a slight improvement from what we've been getting. I do think the pencils have been neater, but still the same problem I've been having with this series is that it's very crowded. It just feels like a lot. Some exposition, and, we have new characters and also old characters trying to find chemistry with each other, which I haven't really gotten here. It feels like some forced team building, but I haven't really felt the emotions between this team at all. But there's some interesting scenes, like actually seeing the Zords in space was cool, and the different Zords. Also like that Grace is taking charge a bit more in seeing her personality, because she's been kind of in the background. So that was nice, but still not feeling the series overall, and I think the coloring, even though I like the idea of it, has really dampened this story, and also has gotten me, I guess, gotten me to struggle with actually getting into this. So, gonna give this one 2.5 stars, and that is number 15. Moving on to number 14, which is Extermination, issue 5. Not a bad book, but at the same time, nothing that really wowed me. There's some small panels I really liked. Mostly, I really liked Domino saying she couldn't kill Honey Badger when she became a hound. I thought was probably the funniest moment of the issue. But everything else was by the numbers, stuff we knew was gonna happen, but all feels way too late, like years late, which is obviously our X-Men, these young X-Men, going back and forgetting everything that happened. It just kind of feels like they've retconned and erased years of X-Men stories at this point. So it's weird, and I kind of wish there was more, I guess, remnants to it. I kind of wish that the young X-Men were able to remember everything they went through. Obviously, like, time-wise, they couldn't do that, but it just kind of felt like that's all this event was. And then also Cyclops comes back. Cool, I guess. I don't like the character much, so I'm just like, it was okay with him without it, but I understand as, an X-Men fan, it's like, alright, I guess Cyclops is back, they're gonna try redeeming him. Artwork is solid though, but overall, it's just pretty much an action issue to put these pieces back together, and obviously the big moment for me was actually losing Cable, and we'll see, I guess, the ramifications of that in X-Force issue 1, which comes out next week. So giving that one 2.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 13, which is Spider-Geddon, issue 5, another event book from Marvel, and I thought this was one of the better issues, but still has the crowdedness that I haven't liked, and I didn't like the villains. I didn't like that they brought back the Inheritors. I don't think it was needed. It very much was a cash grab sequel from beginning to end. There are small moments I enjoyed here, like Spider-Gwen and Punk Rock, Spider-Man bonding over wanting to be in a band together, so that was cool. I especially like the Spider-Girl stuff, and hopefully the promise that we will get to see the 3 of them again. And I thought they were pretty badass, and Annie's newfound powers are pretty interesting. And then the cliffhanger, which I liked and disliked, is Peter from May's world, May's dad, coming back to life. But then it's like, cool! Why didn't this happen in the beginning of the series? That way there was something to do throughout this whole series. Like, where is this gonna pick up? There is no Mayday Parker series. There's no Renew Your Vows series. It's like, where does this go? I don't think Amazing Spider-Man is gonna really be touching upon this, so that's, like, I liked it, but, like, are you just saying, alright, if you like this sequel, that nothing really happened and we just gave you more questions, we'll have another sequel for you that does the same exact thing, and we'll bring back the Inheritors for no reason, because there's baby Inheritors now. So yeah, I just don't really know for the overall plot of Spider-Man what this did, but it's fun if you turn off your brain a bit. But I like the original a lot more than this, and like I said, it just kind of felt like a cash grab. But the artwork was really good for this book, but it's just more of a blockbuster event, I would say. And if you go into that knowing that, I think you might enjoy the event more. So yeah, gonna give this one 2.5 stars. Alright, moving on to number 12, which is Batman issue 61. This book was weird, and not in the Tom King weird that I usually like. It was this narrative where you're a little confused at, like, why is Batman with Bruce Wayne? And then you kind of figured, alright, it's probably Hush. And then by the end you find out, oh yeah, it was Hush. But yeah, my biggest problem with the recent issues of Batman, I don't know where the series is going. How are all these threads connecting? It just kind of feels all over the place just to tell, like, these poetic stories that in story, like, plot-wise, doesn't have a lot of substance for the book. It's like, it's an interesting creative thing that I don't think really landed with this issue. So, for me, I gave it 2.5 stars, but once again, the artwork is always really great for this. Really like the detail and emotion, and as always with Tom King's writing, the cinematicness of it all. So, giving this 2.5 stars, though. Just don't really know where Batman's going in these past couple of issues. Alright, moving on to number 11, which is Witchblade, issue 10. Very exposition heavy of explaining what the Witchblade is and I guess a little bit of Alex's origins, but the moments I enjoy the most is actually Alex. You know, hearing her inner monologue is always the most enjoyable part, and has always been the strongest aspect of this series, just her personality. But everything surrounding it, just so much over-explaining, and I just want to delve into the mythology in a different way, because I like the Witchblade world, but I haven't been seeing it. They've been telling me a lot about it, but I actually want to see the action, and I have not gotten that since the series has started, honestly. And the artwork is okay. Again, it doesn't really show me that much action. It's solid for the emotional work, but it's not the artwork I'm used to for Witchblade, which is, like, very realistic, especially towards the end of the Witchblade series, so definitely would like a little bit more detail for that, in that style again. So I'm going to give this one 3 stars. It's not a bad book by any means. I like the Alex stuff. I do want to see this series, like, pull it up a notch, though. Alright, moving on to number 10, which is Betty and Veronica, issue 1. It's a different Archie that we're going into, and I don't know how to feel about it. I didn't love the Nick Spencer Archie first issue, and you definitely see the remnants of that here. The thing I enjoyed the most was definitely Betty and Veronica's core of their friendship, that you see that they care about each other, but the unnecessary drama that was in Archie issue 700 definitely stays true here, where we get to see this weird continuity jump that Betty was dating Reggie, which I'm guessing we're gonna see in the actual Archie series, but then that kind of spoils things. I'm just like, I don't know what that was all about. And then again, the unnecessary drama of Veronica finding out that Betty was hanging out with Archie, and now Veronica's hanging out with Reggie, and it's just like, I like the way Mark Waid was able to balance the love triangle, and make them feel like friends. Like, yes, they're allowed to both like Archie, but that's not all their story was about, and it's just kind of going back to that. It's just like, yeah, we like each other, but there's always gonna be drama between us, and I know that's kind of the core of their characters, but I feel like we've grown from that in this modern storytelling of Archie, so that's kind of been a huge nitpick for me with this current Archie run, and it looks like it's definitely seeping through to Betty and Veronica as well. So I'm going to give this one 3 stars. Artwork is fun though. I like the outfits, pretty solid. I do wish there was a little bit more of an emotional punch with the facial expressions, but overall, like I said, I think the artwork's pretty solid. So I'm going to give that one 3 stars. Alright, moving on to number 9. I'm glad to see this higher for the finale, and that is Regression, issue 14. Artwork, as always, is so gorgeous, and definitely was the highlight for me. Always for this book was just the cleanness of this artwork, and how I always felt like I was kind of watching through a movie camera lens, especially the way it did focusing in this book. But yeah, overall, pretty good ending, showing that this regression will never end, and these characters will always kind of tell the same story, which has always been the premise of this book, and I'm glad we finally went back to the main characters, though. That was a big problem for me, where it was like switching with their regressions, and you didn't get enough of the actual main characters that you liked, and I'm glad they ended strong with their relationship again. So, giving this one 3.5 stars. Alright, I'm going to take a sip of water, and then we're going to move on to number 8. Alright, number 8 is West Coast Avengers, issue 6. This was definitely a point A to point B issue. Not a lot happens, but the stuff that does happen is with Kate, and I like that. I liked her relationship with her mom, but there's definitely more mystery. Like, why is the mom teaming up with Madame Mask? Like, what's going on there? And then the rest of it is just kind of humor between the rest of the team that I didn't think landed as well as it usually does. I didn't really have as many laugh out loud moments, but yeah, definitely a slower burn issue, but still enough to offer with Kate's story. And really liking the new art style for this book. Overall, they've had some really good artists here, and that's really able to nail the action and the comedy and the relationships between these characters. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars. Moving on to number 7, which is Outcast, issue 37. We know this series is going to be ending soon, and it's a story I feel like that comes too late. We learn more about Simon, which is our main character's dad, and just the origins of our main character and why the dad left, and how he met his mom, who we know in the end ended up getting possessed by one of the demons and having to go into a home because of it. So we see Simon making mistakes, but again, this is kind of coming too late because we're almost getting to the end of stuff, and I still don't really know what story they're trying to tell. That's always been my problem with Outcast. Is like, yeah, that you get like little tidbits of this Outcast world, but what is the overall scheme of this story? I still don't know. Hopefully we get to learn that by the end of the series. But the artwork is really good and haunting. I love the close-ups that we get to see and just that uniqueness of the paneling to really get the emotions out. So that I have enjoyed a lot about this series. So giving that one 3.5 stars. Obviously still gonna pick it up until the end, but I do feel like because the show didn't do well, that is the actual reason they're ending it. But supposedly Kirkman said they always had an ending for this book, but I think it's ending earlier because of it. But yeah, let's move on to number 6, which is The Amazing Spider-Man, issue 12. This one wasn't as strong as the last issue. It's mostly just going through J. Jonah Jameson's life, and if you know his life, it's kind of repetitive, I guess. It has somewhat of an emotional pull, especially with the artwork, but there's also feels like to be some missing stuff, like Maddie Franklin. Why wasn't she mentioned as a lost one? And yeah, that's most of the issues, just kind of looking through J. Jonah's life, and then by the end, we finally do get a moment where he uses the Spider Slayer to defeat Scorpion, but then we have this other guy come in the end. So Big Man's coming there to wreak some havoc between Spider-Man and J. Jonah Jameson. So yeah, not a lot happened here. Still love the chemistry between Jameson and Spider-Man, but I guess it was nice because you don't really get to see an issue fully on J. Jonah Jameson if you don't know the character well. This is probably a good issue to read because you get to learn a lot about him. But if you've been a Spider-Man fan for a long time like me, it doesn't really add much. So I'm going to give this 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Teen Titans, issue 25. This is the first issue I've picked up in a really long time, but my comic frontline friends said it got really good, and I wanted to find a jumping on point, and this seemed like one, because this is the origin story of Crash, and a little bit of Roundhouse as well in the end, which I didn't expect, and I was like, another secondary story, I just wanted this issue to end, and they were like, oh, that's actually pretty good, even it had limited pages, and I don't mean it was a bad issue, that's why I wanted to end, but a lot of times with like annuals and bigger issues, like, oh, we need to tack on this story because we need to actually have this as a $4.99 book because we have to make it bigger. So I actually thought the story was necessary, and that was cool to see, and kind of a fresh take on the bigger issues, number page-wise. But yeah, I actually really thought the Crush story was very solid, and what I personally really liked about it was learning about our Earth parents, which they were junkies pretty much, and but they still cared about Crash or Crush. They still cared about her, and we're kind of like this mom, Pa Kent in a different way, and it was kind of cool to see these drug addict characters in a different light, and instead of just putting them in the stereotypical story. So I actually really like that, and I think probably I would have gotten even more from this story if I knew these characters beforehand, but I just jumped on. But overall, really solid story. Artwork's really solid as well. So I'm going to give it 4 stars. I was pleasantly surprised, and I'll be continuing to pick this up to see where the story is going. Moving on to number 4, which is Long Lost, Part 2, Issue 6, which is the last issue of Long Lost, and probably one of the better issues I've read in a while for this series, and it really ends on the note that I like this series about, and that is the sisters, and we get to see the lighter sister, you know, the character that was always, you know, trying to put the fun in things and look at the upside, lose her sister, and really we get to see a darkness from her, and then finally they reunite in the end, which I felt like I kind of wish they didn't, because I wanted that somber ending. But overall I thought the dialogue was pretty good. I wish there was more of the sisters previously to really get that emotional weight with this issue, but I really like the uniqueness of the art style here, and I thought it was a solid ending to the series. So I'm going to give this 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is Exorsisters issue 3. The beginning feels a little tacked on, but once we get towards like the 5th page or so, and we get to the meat of the story, it becomes really fun. And we learn our main character, I believe her name's Kate, her ex-boyfriend is now a fly, and you're like, wait, she dated a fly? How did that work out? And even her sister says that, and then you learn their origins and how he wanted to sell her soul, and then she's like, well, too late, my soul's already gone, my life sucks. So it's kind of cool to see in her love life, or look into her love life. I thought that was cool, and how she hasn't been able to have one because her soul's been taken. So another thing her mom's kind of ruined. So even though it's kind of felt very one-shotty, these issues, I do like how it's connecting into a bigger picture that we're learning more about our main character. And the artwork, I do like this kind of Archie style, webcomic style that we get with it as well, and it brings the fun that I've really enjoyed about this series. So I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, and that is Life of Captain Marvel, issue 5, the finale of, honestly, probably the best Captain Marvel book I've read. I've really enjoyed this, especially in recent years. I think this has been the best Carol story, and I've really enjoyed it. And with this, we get to see the passing of Carol's mom, and Carol just finding out about her and learning about her, and obviously feeling sorry about that, but she has that one final battle with her. And it's a really somber issue, and also action-packed in a way. But we get to see Carol kind of accept her new origins. We get to see a little bit of how that connected to Captain Marvel. So one thing I've really enjoyed about this series overall is that it's been able to retcon Carol's origins without taking anything away that previous writers have written with the character, which is a challenge all in itself that the creative team's really been able to do well here. And the artwork is beautiful, with obviously the current artwork and the present, and also even the past artwork I really like too. It really brings that I guess classic feel to it, and I'm glad that there's two different artists for the flashback and in the current story. But I also like just seeing Carol and her civvies. It's so we don't get to see it that very often, where she just kind of takes away her uniform, and we just get to see Carol the girl, and that's been the really successful part of this book as well, is that Captain Marvel is always Captain Marvel, you know? And it's so nice to just see Carol for once, you know? Or at least it's been a while where I felt like we haven't seen Carol the girl in a while. So I'm going to give that 4 stars. I thought it was a really solid ending to a really great miniseries. And if you want to jump into a Captain Marvel series or just learn more about a character, this is the best series to pick up. So moving on to number 1, which is probably obvious for you guys, and that is Runaways issue 16. I really like this issue. Going into it, I thought it was just going to be like this kind of random, not random, but I thought it was just going to be like a one-shotty Christmas story. But somehow Rainbow is able to put in this heart and even connect to where we're going for the series, which I really enjoyed. And the moments I especially enjoyed was Gert and Victor, where Victor's still getting used to this new body, doesn't really know what he wants to do, and Gert, you know, she's also kind of feeling out of body in a lot of ways and out of place, because she doesn't believe she belongs here, because she doesn't. She returned and she's like, well, this is not my time, you know, this is not my time zone anymore. And now Victor and Gert kind of have to make a decision. Is she gonna go back? And that way she does have that life. And what will that mean for Gert? Well, we get to see like a 2-year older Gert, and what will her adventures be? Will the other characters change? There's a lot of interesting stuff there. But then also the big challenge is Alex, you know, bringing up that they have to kill these gods, and then the team being really split up. Do we kill these gods, especially this god that's been looking over us, that we're kind of friends with now, or, you know, friendly with, that we've gotten to know them? So going back to the overall theme of Runaways, but really this theme of this series is that now that we're older, now that we're becoming adults, do we automatically become our parents, even though we've tried so hard not to be them, and really getting to see those barriers and those hurdles that they're having to jump through. But then at the same time, you're getting this really interesting Christmas story, because one thing that I also love about Runaways is that this is a found family, and we get to see the drama of Christmas, where Nico just doesn't want to see Alex at all. Carolina's like, I just want a nice Christmas. So you're getting to see the mom type figure, the dad type figure, the uncle, the aunt type figures, the kids, like Molly's just like, I just want to open presents. And then also Nico's dealing still with that drama of that she made a deal with the devil, and she has her powers, but Carolina's like, hey, like, how are you using your powers without the sacrifice? You know, magic has to have this balance. So what's going to happen to Nico after this? It's definitely not going to be roses and butterflies with her powers. And then also there's just like a lot of funny moments. We get to see Chase trying to put raisins on a coat rack to actually make a Christmas tree. We get to see some robot puns between Gert and Victor, which also we get to see a lot of like cool emotional character moments with Victor, where he talks about God, you know, he talks about, I don't want to be a god, and then Gert's like, oh, I didn't think you would believe in a god. He's like, yeah, you know, I'm a robot, but like, I'm still Catholic. I might have been made from a villain, but I'm still Catholic. I thought that was a really cool character moment as well. And then Chris Anka's artwork, as always, especially with the clothes. It's Christmas time. We get to see Molly with a snowman hat. I love the designs here, but also the emotions. Like, we get to see, you know, this really close emotions with Victor and Gert. But then we also get to see Nico kind of explode at Alex. The somber moments where there are no words, and you're really feeling those emotions with those panels, where I think Rainbow and Chris just are a perfect team to show that. So yeah, overall, really enjoyed this issue. I was pleasantly surprised, which I shouldn't have been because I know this creative team and I love this book, but I really just expected, cool, it's a Christmas issue. We're just gonna have a fun Christmas stuff. But really, I think it delivers the funny, it delivers the emotion. It's a really good issue. So I'm gonna give this one 4.5 stars, and that is my number 1 pick. Let me know in the comments below what your favorite comics were and what you really enjoyed. But also I want to give a little note that next week is Christmas, and there are like no comics coming out. So instead of doing a Comic Uno episode, I'm gonna do individual reviews. I'm only getting 2 comics. I'm getting Fantastic Four and X-Force issue 1. So those are the books I'll review. So definitely look forward for that. But no Comic Uno episode, but then the week after, I'll be back with the series, of course. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Don't forget to like my Facebook page. Also, description below, there are links for my comic book, Like Father, Like Daughter. Don't forget to like the Facebook page of Like Father, Like Daughter. And also, be sure to check out Frontline Live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talk about comic news and our top 5 comics. So be sure to check that out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno.